right. I think we're now in.
Good. Nice seeing the floodgates open, isn't it?
Yeah. Indeed. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for that. Whilst we'll wait a couple of minutes for people to join, and in the meantime, there's a quick form. So if you have a chance to fill it in, I'll pop it in the chat window. Yeah. Yep. So if you have like a minute whilst we're waiting, just fill out that form, and then we'll let everyone get settled for a minute or two. Someone's raised their hand. Felix has raised his hands. Their hand. Felix, I've unmuted you. If you have something you want to share.
Felix may just be saying hello, and he's found the form.
Okay.
Not sure.
Okay, no worries.
Literally, leave it one more minute, but just otherwise we'll then get going.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I think now is a good time. I think we've got about 190 registered for the day, and we've got getting on towards 120 already in. So I don't know if Felix is coming up on my screen, David. I don't know if you need to change something on that where he's been enabled.
Yeah. Okay. That's
good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Great to see you again. I'm Paul Winder from MGI in the UK. Delighted to introduce David Benaim to you again from Excel Consulting. Many of you will have spent time with David on the previous webinars on Excel and PowerPoint, which were a fantastic success. As more and more of us are looking into Teams, it felt like the right time to have a bit more of a dive into Teams, and with a particular angle with how it's working for accounting firms. So David, as an accountant, no better person to take us through this. Any questions, please put them in the chat box. We will work through questions probably at the end, but if they're pertinent as we go along, I'll shout them out to David as we go along. But with no further ado, David, over to you.
All right. Yes, thank you very much, Paul. So hello, everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen. All right, thank you for the responses so far. We'll come back to that in a minute. Great. So here we are on today's session. We're talking about Teams for accountants. So the accounting life cycle tends to be something along these lines. So writing and submitting a proposal, setting up initial meetings and a timeline, then often, depending on the job, spending some time at the client site, then running some testing. This is very common with things like tax computations or auditing, and then filing things away until next year. Now, of course, there are lots of different accounting jobs, but from my experience as an accountant when I was working in Deloitte, these are a lot of the kind of things we used to do. So the classic method had the initial proposal stage was create a Word document and convert that to a PDF. And then we would do meetings on the phone or sometimes in person, face-to-face, go to the client site physically, and then use Excel or other documents for experiments and for testing, and then finally save things on the server. Post-COVID world, it seems like a lot of these things have changed. Some of them even for the better, I think. So now we're starting to use different kinds of applications across these things, using for meetings. We're doing that online. We're using channels within Teams and a few other things. And moving into how this works, we get into the four main aspects of Teams. So I view Teams in a kind of grouped product that has four main things together. So it has channel-based chats. We can have online virtual meetings, kind of like we're using Zoom for right now. We can then also use different applications built within Teams. And the fourth part is file storage. So I think those kind of nicely equate to the accounting lifecycle. Again, if you like these pretty animations, I showed everyone how to do this on PowerPoint 2 weeks ago in that session. So breaking down, I've kind of built this to follow those 5 steps. So we're going to start with developing the proposal and modern ways to do that. Then we're going to go to channel-based chat and what people typically use Teams for. Then other applications that can be embedded within Teams. We're going into online meetings, using Teams for file storage, and then get to the finish line and summarize. So going into proposals as the first point. Now, proposals, people very often use Word documents that go back into PDFs, something that ends up looking like this. But I have a big problem with this. The accounting lifecycle starts off with a proposal. If I gray everything else out, then we get the Word to PDF strategy. Almost everyone does. PDFs, however, are incredibly outdated. Here's 2 massive examples why. Everything that's PDF is automatically paginated. It's page by page. That's literally the concept of PDF. It's literally the concept of Word files. However, in today's day and age where printing is a lot less important than it used to be, what is the point of anything being paginated at all? Second idea. Now that we're starting to communicate a lot more on our mobile phones than we ever have been, and our computer is most of where we do our work, but we also want to be able to do things on the phone, PDFs look horrible on mobile phones. Enter this application that's called Sway. Let me show you this because I've been playing around with it for the last 2 weeks and I love this. So, all right, let's go into this. So this is a Sway that I made. Let's refresh it, actually. It's a proposal for the UK Accounting Institute in Vietnam. And this is how my proposal currently looks. Do you see that? Do you see how slick and smooth this is? It's scrollable. It's dark themed with white text on it. There's embedded content. So these are videos from my YouTube channel that can be sort of played right from within the application.
Hello.
There's other embedded content, like this is a Power BI dashboard that I've embedded. So this works just like a Power BI dashboard would if it was in the Power BI application itself. I can click on the filters. I can go into this timeline and sort of play this. This is data on COVID-19, by the way. This is real data on COVID-19. If you are a fan of how this looks, then I'm going to be talking about data visualization in my next week's webinar. So using Power BI, but also using Excel. So this is the deaths versus the last confirmed. And we can see that Italy and Spain are sort of right at the beginning. However, UK and France are sort of coming up, definitely, as we get through middle of April. And eventually, unfortunately for some of us, everything carries on rising, with Germany getting a lot of confirmed, but very, very few dead. And then as we continue growing, Spain and Italy sort of stagnant off, but UK overtakes them to have the highest number of cases and the highest number of dead out of all of these places in Europe. So this is Power BI, and this is all nested in my Sway diagram. I also have hyperlinks, so if people want to see this on a mobile Power BI, they can click there. Oh, by the way, we're going to do what we did for previous sessions. if you find what you're seeing fun, and then type in wow in the chat box if you like what you're seeing. So if you're enjoying this feature. You also have embedded GIFs. I love GIFs because they are a thing that auto plays and loads automatically. I use them a lot in most of my blogs that I write. GIFs are a really real live document. So this is an example of a sway. If you don't want to navigate that way, you can tap on this and get this sort of visual, lovely, beautiful navigation to everything that you want to get to. For example, who am I, etc. And there's all sorts of other fun things you can do with it. So this is this thing called a comparison picture. So you can upload 2 photos and mark it as this thing called comparison. And then you have this thing that can sway between them really, really physically using one of the Excel features that I love. So yeah, and then you can share this and have it password protected so it's secure, and also allow different functionality. If someone does want to print it, they absolutely can. It's not particularly difficult. They can even export it to Word. So that's my first demo of the day, that it's Sway. So how do we do it? If you are an Office 365 customer, you can navigate to Sway from the general menu here. It's just one of these applications that you get there. And Sway is even available for free. So if you don't have an Office 365, all you need to do is sign up to an Outlook.com email address or a Hotmail.com, and you get Sway included within that. So once you navigate to it, you can either start from blank or start from a document. And let me go to a document that is the one that I pre-prepared for this. And it's basically more or less the same diagram that I've done. That is a Word file. Let me show you the Word file. This is it. Nothing particularly fancy there. There's a table. There is some text. There's a couple of images, but it's not really particularly different than what you would expect. And just like that, this is back to my browser page. It has automatically done this. So that's it. What did that take me? 30 seconds? Now, sure. In my world, I would definitely do something extra. So I would definitely edit that and do certain things with it. Here's some cool stuff you can do. So you can go to styles and you can just choose like any one of these, and it can have different effects depending on what it is. And essentially, Sway is smart enough to sort of put things where it thinks are best for you to put them. If you are interested in learning this product, then I probably have about 8 tips of things you must know, and things that I've found out the hard way through about 30 hours of playing around with it over the last month. But for example, how to fine-tune the color codes to whatever it is you want, how to add your own logos, how to add images, how to remix it and make it fun. Yeah, this is horizontal scrolling like that. So I get it. A lot of people are accountants, and accountants are often skeptical of change, but I think this is just a fantastic application that if you have a proposal and you're up against 5 different other proposals, and one of them is a Sway and 5 of them are a PDF, who's going to stand out? And again, my point that PDFs are outdated because pagination makes absolutely no sense in a post-printing world, as does mobile applications. So Sway, by definition, automatically mobile optimizes that. So you could read that on an iPad, on a mobile phone, and it will put it and make it just legible and nice and streamlined in whatever application you need to use. Essentially creates a website for you.
David, just one question that's come in on Sway.
Yes.
Is it here for the long term? Is it a product that's being developed by Microsoft, or is it something standalone that could suddenly disappear?
Good question. Sway is developed by Microsoft, sway.office.com. It got released actually about 5 years ago. So for that reason, I don't see it as being one of their experimental ones that's going to go away. Personally, I didn't really play around with it when it first came out because it was marketed as a presentation software. But anyone who came last week knows how much I love PowerPoint, and this is not visual. enough for a slide. This is a text-heavy thing. So this is not a presentation software for me. I didn't really look into it. However, when push came to shove and I just played around with it a little bit more, I was like, this isn't going to replace PowerPoint for me, but this is going to replace PDFs. Definitely at the proposal stage, maybe not at the final report stage.
The other questions relevant to it, that will it work on old versions of Office or Microsoft? And do you need any particular software to be able to read it?
No, this is extremely flexible as opposed to a lot of the other Microsoft apps. So as I said, Sway is available it's available if you have a free version of a Microsoft account, or it's available through Office 365. And if you want to go back and sort of start from a document, you can upload any one of these files. So a docx or even a doc, which is from Word 2003. You can even upload a PDF and a PowerPoint file. From experience, those two don't work as well as a Word file, though. Yeah, there's no limitations on version control like there is for other apps. Great. All right, cool. So that was my demo. All right, you got me. I'm sorry. That was not Teams. You came here for Teams. I'm sorry. I just wanted to start off with something that's a wow. And I really like this application. And I think that a lot of people have said that they like it in the chat. So I wanted to show you that it's a quite nice, easy tool. And I also am conscious that some people came to the remote working webinar that I did a few weeks ago. So I wanted to make sure that I started off with something that's just very different to the remote working tool that we did. The responses that we've got here, 23 people came to the remote working tech webinar. That's good. A lot of people came to Excel. By the way, this is another Office app. It's called Microsoft Forms. It's extremely easy to use, and I highly recommend people pick it up if they haven't. Forms has automatically analyzed all this stuff whilst we've been on the call, and it's very, very easy to use. So we see that there's a lot of people who always have Teams open, but there's still a fair number of people who have never used Teams before and are probably just curious to figure out what it is. So I'm going to try and address both of those needs. I also see there's a big range in terms of how many emails people get. And email is definitely what people seem to use the most. Chat apps is used very, very little, apparently, which is actually very different to other industries. So in other industries, people just want to do everything on WhatsApp or Messenger with less and less coming on email. Great. And what people use Teams for, so a lot for chat, a lot for meetings, and not as many things for things like polls, recording meetings and scheduling. So I will show those as I go along. Great. So back to my session guide. Let's go into channel-based chat. And some very excited cats. Today's data inputs come in a few different shapes and sizes. I broadly put these in two categories, in boxes and in briefs. So nowadays we are sending and receiving communications all day, every day. And there's not really the concept of work hours that we were privileged to have a few years back, because we're sort of always on. Certainly in my job, I am. My name is David Benaim. I have a YouTube channel, and I just hit 1,000 subscribers last week. Yay. Just started 8 months ago, so pretty psyched to get about that. I am always publishing new content on anything from Teams to Zoom to Excel, PowerPoint, Power BI. I'm going to do a Sway one this week. So if you want to learn that stuff, my Sway one is coming out this week. I'm really excited for it. I just want to make sure I get it just right to have the maximum impact on it. So I recently won a Microsoft MVP award, which puts me in essentially like the top 1 to 200 Microsoft Office people in the world. And I have direct lines with all of the development team. In fact, I'm getting about a dozen emails per day from the other MVPs and the Microsoft development team, kind of discussing the future of where these products are going. A lot of it I'm not allowed to say because I'm under non-disclosure agreement. But I am also an accountant, so I qualified with the ICAW. Now I do less accounting, but I still blog for them about once a month. And I've done corporate training with over 1,800 people. And I have done consulting work within my company, Excel Consulting, based in Cambodia, of all places, with over 120 organizations. So what we get is a lot of people consider that email can be too heavy. You need to start off with, hello, how are you? You need to sign off with blah, blah, blah. Then it loads all that other stuff with your signature. And if you send it outside your organization, you might have a 2-page summary about how this cannot be used in a court of law, blah, blah, blah. It's a very heavy thing. And an email chain just involves a lot of scrolling. On the other hand, using phone chat apps can be really, really light. Things like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Telegram. You end up just like saying things very, very quickly. You don't always think about what it is you're saying, and you don't really worry about the stuff that you might send outside your organization like you should. Let's take this back 25 years to 1995. In 1995, we had email at the top of this scale. So email was what people used to think of as being too light, whereas full-blown letters, that was a little bit too heavy. So we ended up doing emails a lot more, first of all, internally only, and later on we ended up doing emails externally, and now letters are virtually non-existent, except if we need something specifically signed and dated. So what I think of Teams, I think of a collaboration of when chat meets email, when WhatsApp means Outlook. Again, look at these beautiful animations which lead to a 2020 presentation, right? This is a fluid document that goes the whole way through. So Teams is sort of this. It's like a halfway house, in my opinion, between WhatsApp and between email. And I'm not the only one that thinks this way, and neither is Microsoft. Companies who think email will die, companies who have created a Teams-like product include Facebook, who's invented this thing called Workplace. Google have Google Hangout Meets, and Slack. Slack is a standalone organization that sort of pioneered this entire idea of channel-based chat. In fact, Microsoft tried to buy Slack about 4 years ago. Slack said no. Microsoft said, all right, we're going to make our own. Although Slack is still very, very popular, especially amongst the techies. So what you do is you create different teams, and within that, different channels. So teams can either be structural, so something that is, for example, always going to be there. So maybe a structural channel could be, I don't know, like contractual stuff or new updates to the IFRS, things like that. Whereas disposable teams might be audit for Parrot Limited for 2021. It's something that you have in there, and once it's done, you sort of get rid of it and you can hide it later on. So accountant's example might be something like this. You have a team, top-level team, which is Plary Limited Audit. Then underneath, you have a hierarchy level called channels, and that might be a place where we talk about the testing of fixed assets or contractual stuff related to this engagement, anything to do with the audit planning, that might be under this audit. Or a tax advice for a person, Greg P. We have different channels where we talk about maybe his inheritance tax, maybe his annual return, and maybe just general discussions about the properties that he has. So translating that into Microsoft Teams, over here, we have the top layer. These are teams. These are what Microsoft calls teams. And underneath that, these are channels. So we have in my company that do a lot of demos, we have something called feature test. And then that automatically populates the general channel. And you can get some hidden channels that you can choose to show, or you can choose to hide them if you want to not see all of them underneath there. There we go. So this is sort of how Teams is navigated. Now, there are these things on the left here. I will talk about these as I go along. For now, I think Teams is the one here. I think Teams is the most revolutionary one, particularly for people who haven't really used Slack or Teams or Google Meet, Google Hangouts before. Chat is essentially just like WhatsApp. You can have one-to-one chat messages, or you can have different group messages with multiple people. Calendar, this is just a less advanced version of your Outlook calendar. Calls, I don't ever really use this because I just call people through meetings in Calendar or through chat or through Teams. And then you have files, which is just another way to access your files if you store things on SharePoint and OneDrive. I will talk about those later on as well. So this is the hierarchical system that we get to for Teams. And let me show you a couple of advanced things for a lot of people that don't know these tools. So if you are used to using email, you might get frustrated that things come up in conversations like this. And it's kind of easy to get lost in what's going on. Teams actually doesn't want you to type in here your new chat. Teams wants you to reply in line like this. And then you can mention people. So this is someone inside my organization. It's 8 o'clock at night, so he's probably going to get annoyed that he's notified about this. Like things like Messenger, you can react to posts. You can also do other things like click here and then explore these options. So you can share to Outlook, and then this can send this thread to your Outlook email. So that's a newish feature that came out quite recently. Not something I use that much because I tend to keep them separate, but you can say, who do you want to send it to? So let's just send it to myself. There you go. And then it pops up there like that. All right, so there's a few other ways you can play with that. Another thing that I guess is worth exploring is how to get a subject. So if you click on this button down here and you start a new conversation, you get the option to add a subject. So this subject might be, I don't know, audit materiality. And then you can just type things in here as your usual thing. You can also choose to post in multiple channels. And so if you have something that you want to post in multiple places, you can select the channels. You can even do this within multiple teams at the same time. So that could be a way to do a one-to-many post. Again, if you like what you're seeing and you're learning something new for the Teams veterans, feel free to type the wow button. I think that these two tools are very, very useful and not very much used. So that is some stuff you can do here. Again, just to reiterate, what I will say is that it can get confusing when you type things in reply and when you don't. I see a lot of novice Teams people, including myself, who's just like, you know, just writes a direct reply to one of these questions like, thanks for the file, here you go. But these actually end up creating separate threads, whereas Microsoft Teams wants you to do these replies. So here you go would be in the reply section here instead of as a new conversation. This is a little bit different to how Slack and Google Hangouts deals with it. I personally think Google Hangouts does it the best. In Teams, it's not incredibly obvious when you're doing this, particularly if you're just used to chat apps, especially since in the chat application here, you get that structure. So yeah, that's useful there. Okay, so that is a quick demo of these features. Some other things you can do is you can embed forms. So I showed you Microsoft Forms. You can even create a form directly within Teams by typing @forms like this. And then you can say, well, what can I do? You can create a new poll and put it here and sort of just create your question and your answer. But I like to do it the shortcut way, which is just write @forms. Sorry. @forms tab, and then I can just write the question. So, do you like this yes, comma, no, comma, maybe. So question mark to split out the question, and then commas to separate the answers. And after a little bit, that turns into a poll. So now other people can reply to that as they want. This can also be done in meetings. So if you're in a meeting chat, you can also use this same process, and then anyone can just vote for what they want, and the results appear live like this. Go to my OneNote. Did I get everything? Save post and notify. Okay, so you can also, if you have something that you want to save for later, maybe a final call on the materiality, you can click the three dots and choose save this message. And that would put it in there, saved. How do you retrieve saved stuff? Click on your name and go to saved, and this will just be a list of your saved stuff. You can also go to settings, and Teams allows you to choose your notifications channel by channel. So you can say that for one type of thing, you want to get notified whenever you're mentioned only, one type of thing whenever there's a new message you want to get notified, etc., etc. So you have very granular notifications that can be useful to manage there as well. Finally, another useful thing that not a lot of people know is you can click on the three dots in a channel and you can choose get email address. I love this feature. This will create an email address. Press copy there. If I go to my Outlook and I just sort of type in a new meeting, like this, a new email, and I just sort of paste there, that will paste it directly into this list. So anything that I type in this email, including any attachments, I won't do that now, but when I press send and go back to my Teams, after a minute or two, we will see that pop up over here. So that's a really cool way. If you like that feature, going from Outlook to Teams, then tell me wow in the chat. That's one that I really like. All right, so we'll come back to that as it pops open. Let's see how the chat's going. Yeah, a few wows. People like that feature. I really like it. So again, I am trying to address in this same webinar stuff for people who have ticked I always have Teams open in the forum, as well as stuff for who said they have no idea what Teams is. So for both of those features, I have trying to make something good for everyone. So let's keep going. Number 3, other apps. Other things that sort of work well together. So each team has different 3 automated tabs. So you can have Posts tab, the Files tab, and the Notes tab, and then you can add your own extra applications. Apps can be added in Microsoft Teams in 3 different ways. Either the entire program, the team itself, or to a channel in an extra tab. So I will show these 3 instances in a little bit. You can add different tabs to be, for example, a web page, a Word, an Excel file, or something called Community, which is the Yammer application, or any other third-party application as well. So looking at that here, on the left-hand navigation, I have added the Communities app. This is using Microsoft Yammer, which is supposed to be like a wider thing than Teams. It's kind of like a Facebook for Workplace. But you can just sort of add a lot of other things here. So Planner, this is a Microsoft one that you might want to add, or you can even add Slack, Overflow, other third-party collaboration things here as well. And that means that you'll be able to access it whenever you are, but it's not falling underneath a team or a channel or something like that. Each channel in itself, each team has multiple channels. And if you click the 3 dots, you can go to Manage Team. And then here you can add an app. So this app, I showed you how to use forms. There's a few other ones that are built in, like these ones, but I can go to more apps and I can just choose, let's say your organization uses an app called Trello, like this. You can add that into it. And then here is the ways that you can do it. You can generally do that kind of thing where you can @mention and then start typing things and it will do things for you. But it will integrate with the Trello that you're used to using every day. So Microsoft Teams integrates with, I can't remember the exact number, but a lot of them, you can browse them as you go here. Some of them are Microsoft applications like Power BI. Others are third-party tools that we're seeing there. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it just could go anywhere. But this is how you would add them to the channel. The other way that I said you can add an application or something else, this is probably the one that you're most likely to use. If I go into features test, this is adding a plus button here to add an application. So like I said in the first slide in this section, everything comes built in with the Post tab, the Files tab, and the Wiki tab. Every Teams comes with a general channel, and then you can add a channel as you want to this way. You can add either a public channel or a private channel, which is less likely. And look over here, here's a backtrack to the email that I sent directly to Teams. So you can see that that's automatically featured here like I showed you. So the Files tab, I'll get to Files in the next section. Wiki, this is a place to keep notes. So this is a very, very, very simple note-taking tool. You can do a little bit of formatting or add some tables, add some bullets, etc. But it's pretty limited in terms of what you can do with it. It's just nice because it gets stored in a place that everyone can see it, and you can have a conversation about it as well, about a specific thing that you do there. My preferred note-taking application, the one that I briefly showed you here, this is OneNote. That integrates quite well with Teams. If you haven't used OneNote before, please try it. I won't go through it in enough detail, but I'll just show you a couple of quick things. It links directly to your meeting, so I can just click there. And this is the meeting that I'm currently in, and it just automatically populates with the stuff about the meeting, including notes that you can take there. A tick list for people who are participating. Also love that you can just type anywhere on the screen. Whenever you click there, you can type. And accountants might like this. You can do quick math. 67 plus 829 equals, and then it just does the quick math for you there. But the reason why I really like it is the fact that you can do view and dock to desktop. And then you can just always see it on the left whilst you're doing something else. So I sort of just have this as a whilst I work guideline. And I can just then, everything automatically gets saved. So if I exit out of that without choosing where to save it, it still saves it. Let's go back to dock to desktop. As I said, I tend to use this to make sure when I'm sharing my screen that I get everything that I need to do. So yeah, we were talking about the applications there. Yeah, I love how easy it is to rearrange, and you can tick things off in the tick boxes as well. I wish Word did this. Wouldn't it be nice if Word had these tick boxes, and maybe Excel as well? But yeah, there are some things there. So if you want to, you can press the plus button here and add a OneNote file there. That's kind of why I show it in this app section, because OneNote is quite deeply integrated within Teams, and you can choose which notebook and which page you have to add there. Much more simply, you can add a PDF file, you can add a web page, a website like this. Let's give it the website there. So let me just do it to my YouTube channel, even though you can add it directly to, you can add YouTube as well as an application, and that will just load up my YouTube channel. So I've got it in the copy. Let me just type it in the chat as well. So again, if you'd like to get more stuff, then feel free to check out my YouTube channel. You can join the 1.05 thousand subscribers that I have here. So this is a website that will always keep updated depending what people are putting in there. You can also add an Excel file, PowerPoint, Word file, etc., and they can be edited directly within Teams. So for example, this one, this is a forms that I had before. and you can get all sorts of things like I showed you. And yeah, an Excel file is editable directly within Teams as much as Excel Online is editable, but you can open up Excel from Teams as well. Okay, let's keep going. Bookings. Yes, I wanted to show you this app. I just added this in at the last minute. I've just been playing with it. So this happens to me all the time. Email back and forth. Please, can we meet? Roger, when are you free? Me, how is next week? Roger, sure, I can meet next week. Me, how about Tuesday? No, Tuesday's no good. You end up with 15 emails to set up one meeting. It's so irritating. Why is this what people do on a day-to-day basis? You have Microsoft Bookings application, which was created to be sort of for people running doctors' practices or hairdressers or things like that. But I just use it to meet up with clients. I'm just like, if someone starts being like, oh, this email chain thing, I just send them a link to my Bookings app. What does that do? A Bookings application will sort of look like this. So someone who wants to book a meeting with me, in fact, they can book a meeting with me or two of my colleagues. They can just sort of click on here. This syncs directly with my Outlook calendar. So if I choose this one, you can see that I'm less available on Thursday than I am on Wednesday. And then they can click the time slot they want, type in their name and their email, and then press book. And then they will be able to book this directly with me. It will send both me and them a calendar invite directly with a link to a Teams online meeting, as well as a preferred meeting location. You can set that up in the Bookings app itself. It's pretty straightforward. You just sort of can add your staff here. You can add the services. So, you know, again, if you are a hair salon, you might want to have a coloring of hair, or you might want to have a standard haircut, etc. They might have different durations and different things, but essentially this is what I do. You can assign staff to it. Tick the box, add an online meeting. Buffer time. So here's a trick. If you are going to use this, set buffer time to 5 minutes. It's really obscure how buffer time works with bookings. It made me screw up a few times. Essentially, it sends you a meeting for when that is. So if you say you want 60 minutes buffer time, which I initially had, because you know sometimes I need to travel very far for meetings, what it does is it sends you a meeting that starts, in this case, well, let's say 30. So this could be a 1 hour meeting, but it will send you an Outlook invite for a 2 hour meeting, including 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after. I think it's nonsensical. I'm going to complain to the Microsoft people, but yeah, it just means it's very confusing for you as a person. And then you can do other things. I won't go into too much details with this, but that's bookings for you. Very, very simple procedure. Gives someone a nice branded confirmation email and sends them reminders in their diary as well. So there's Microsoft Bookings, another app that you can add as you want to. There is another one called Planner Simple Project Management. I did cover that in the remote working tech one, so I'm not going to show it to you now as I'm trying to do a little bit different material, but it's a really good one as well. Okay, so online meetings. Let's just jump into doing some demos. So Teams for online meetings is the Zoom competitor. That's probably the one that people have worked with the most. If you go to Calendar, you can choose to either meet now or add a new meeting and schedule it. You also have this other thing called a live event. This is equivalent to a webinar. So Zoom, we're currently using Zoom webinar software for this webinar right now. A live event, it's more of a one-way broadcast than a back and forth thing. And it's allowed up to 10,000 people can access it. So I won't go through that in that much detail because it's not useful for every single person, but I did want to showcase it. Or another way to set up a meeting that I really like is in the post tab of a channel, you can choose the Meet Now button here. And then everyone in this channel is able to join. So add a subject. So what shall we chat about? and then click Meet Now or Schedule. Let me do the Meet Now one because this is one I end up doing a lot. So this is demo for MGI. I'm going to click Join Now. So that automatically pops up like this. You can choose to turn your camera on. I can't use my video because I'm using that for Zoom. But you can then choose here. And if a couple of new features recently added, you can go to Show Background Effects and you can have your own custom background. So like I'm doing with Zoom right now, I can apply a custom background and add new. The add new just got added 2 days ago, so it's brand new. I really like this blur background feature though. It's kind of just it looks very professional, I think. You know, I find these can be kind of cheesy, and also if you move around, they don't work that well, whereas the blur backgrounds just kind of makes everything behind you not visible, and it kind of looks professional. Although something like this is really powerful as well, a corporate background. So essentially this is one that I tend to make myself on PowerPoint, just with a picture file. You get to it like this and just upload that, and then everyone has my email address as I go along. Everyone gets reminded about my job title and a demo of what I do so they can experience the dashboard that I showed you earlier, and even a link to my YouTube or the fact that I do a YouTube. So I find these are really good. I'm sure some people have actually subscribed to my YouTube during this meeting right now because you have my virtual background. So my name is David Benaim in YouTube, and my virtual background does kind of say that. So I think they're really good for corporate backgrounds, or if you want, these are based on the Halo game. God knows why Microsoft added these to professional Teams meetings, and these are just kind of random rooms. So yeah, some other things. This is a raise hands feature, works just like Zoom. They just added it 2 weeks ago. A conversation, so this is a meeting chat. One thing I like about the meeting chat in Teams as opposed to Zoom is that it takes images and it takes a lot of other things like reactions, also polls as well. You can click here if you want to add a form, and that takes a poll. So it's a lot more sophisticated than the chat you get in Zoom or Google Meets. You can choose to turn your camera on or off. You can control the participants. So if there are other participants, you can choose to mute them or unmute them at the same time. You can share a link by clicking this to copy the join info. One thing that I find annoying is if you click that, then if you paste it into a thing, it actually pastes this. It doesn't paste the actual link, it pastes the hyperlink within that. To extract the hyperlink, then you have to do another step, which is right-click it and then go to Open Hyperlink. Oh, yeah, Open Hyperlink. And then, oh, sorry, I'm doing this wrong. You click on this and you choose Edit Hyperlink, and then you copy this one. So this is the way that I do it. It's quite annoying, but essentially if you paste it directly into a web browser, it does not work. So well, I just copied it there. So if you paste it into a WhatsApp message or something, it will not give you the hyperlink. So that's a quick tip for you there. Another couple of new features. So you can now manage the permissions directly from the meeting itself. This was really hard to get to before, but now you can choose sort of who is allowed to present and a few other things like that as well. Oh, it's logged me out for some reason. And this you can download a list, an attendee list as a CSV file. You can also, if you want to, turn on subtitles. So this is kind of come and go, but it is listening to what I'm saying as I am doing this, and it's subtitling. So if you aren't able to listen to the call, but you want it to be in subtitles, it goes there as well. And you can start recording like this. I love the start recording button. I'm going to show you what it does in a second in a later section. So yeah, that is recording my subtitles, and it's doing that as well. You have the show meeting notes. So this is a lot like the wiki that we had before. I'm going to show you where these go in a little bit as well. So if I add in notes, this automatically gets shared with everyone who came to the meeting if they're inside your organization. Unfortunately, people outside your organization don't have access to this. So after that, you can sort of stop recording, and I'm going to end the meeting and hang up. And then if I go to the chat, what it does is it creates a chat with the meetings thing. And at first I was like very, very confused as to why it did this, but now I really, really like it. It's just like a go-to location that has your meeting notes, which you can still edit after the meeting. Why not? It's just a wiki. Any files that you shared during the meeting, the whiteboard that I don't tend to use very much. I find it very weak, but it keeps getting updated. And the chat itself of back and forth within the meeting. So all of that comes in a chat window here that is searchable later on. If you do a meeting directly within a channel, then it doesn't do it here, but it does it in the channel itself instead. Within chat, you have filters, and this is to make a new chat. A new feature as well, you can also pop out a chat. So you can click on one of these ones, and it pops a new window with that chat. Just got introduced last week as well. They are adding that to meetings, and I don't know why they haven't put it in Teams. I guess that's coming for Teams very, very soon as well. Okay, so going through a lot of demos. Let's fast forward that. I think I'm going to, I'll just quickly show you the file storage. So files here is a combination of everything within OneDrive or Dropbox. If you want to add a third-party cloud storage as well, you can, or anything that's stored within Teams. So what does that mean? If you share files in the Files tab over here, what you end up with is files that upload to SharePoint. So you get here open in SharePoint. Whereas anything that you send via a chat file, this goes not in SharePoint, this instead goes into OneDrive. Now, OneDrive and SharePoint can be confusing. I do have actually by far the most viewed video on my channel explains SharePoint versus OneDrive. So it's about 15 minutes. It goes through a demo. Highly recommend watching that if you are confused between them. Yeah, it's doing so well on my YouTube. It's had like 16,000 views and keeps going up all the time as well. So that's how files works. Microsoft Teams, what goes in here is anything that is shared within Teams, which ends up being your SharePoint, etc. You can have your recent files or any downloads. So you can download file outside of Teams. In fact, from any one of these files, you can sort of click on this and choose to download, and then it goes into your downloads folder, like if you use the web browser. All right, so that's where we are. Let's go to the finish line. Ooh, what's going to happen here? Oh, no, that's unfortunate. So to summarize, I opened up with a submersive document that people can do that's like 2020's answer to the PDF. I showed you shared screens, threaded chats, and transcribed meetings. Ooh, I haven't done that yet, actually. I haven't shown you what happens to the recording that you do. So the recording that you do, let me go back into the top chat here. So this is, so the recording here has stopped. It's saving it to Microsoft Stream. So it hasn't yet saved it to Microsoft Stream, but let me look at one that had. So this one has saved these meetings to Microsoft Stream. So if you want to, you can click on that and you can play it directly in here. So it's nice that it's self-contained within Teams, or if you want, if not, you can then open it up, click here and view in Microsoft Stream, which is, I think, the much, much better alternative. Microsoft Stream is kind of like an internal YouTube for your organization. So it's also one of these things. It's Stream here. And what it does is, this is really clever, it automatically transcribes your entire meeting. And as you play it, it's not only playing it and moving along there, but it's also playing over here. And you can fast forward to any point in the meeting that you want. I really love this feature. Pretty commonly used. If you're not happy with some of the transcription, you can edit it a little bit at the time to be what you want it to look at. It's not very good at proper nouns for now, but it is getting better and better for that. You can also add a Microsoft form. See how it's all interconnected together? So you might get to a point in the meeting and then you're like, right, test your understanding. Where is the file that we used to look at audits from prior year? And add a form that then syncs to Microsoft Forms, kind of like this. Or what makes this amazing, and this is so sophisticated, you can search the transcript. So if you just want to get to the crux of what's important for you, you want to search for your name, you just type your name in here, and then it will search for every time where it is there, and you can click to go to wherever it is that mentions your name. It's so easy to use, and Stream is fantastic. So I wanted to show that in particular because a lot of people said the recorded meetings they're not really using. This is only the beginning of where Stream has gone. As I said, I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I have seen the future of where Microsoft is taking video, and wow, this is going to be 10 times as powerful. I can't share it with you, I wish I could, but this is going to be absolutely brilliant. Video is the future of business communication, and this is just the start of it. The downside of Microsoft Stream is you cannot share this for the moment with anyone outside your organization. So it's an internal only YouTube, but you can download the video and then just send it to someone via SharePoint folder or something else. Not ideal, but it is there. All right, so my name was David Benaim. I have a YouTube channel and I do free consultations if you're interested on Teams or remote working tech or whatever. Here's a QR code to my channel. And a final
David, there are a couple of questions. If we can just...
Yes, sorry, just let me just a closing thought and then we'll get to the questions.
Okay, grand.
So, so Sway is kind of this thing that is making everything a lot more fluid. And Microsoft Teams as well, I've shown you sort of how that can integrate with all the applications, how it combines chats and online meetings and calendars and things like that. The future is fluid. And that is the beginning of where Microsoft is going. It's announced this thing called the Fluid Framework. And the Fluid Framework is a way of being able to combine all of your applications in one place. And you'll be able to, for example, copy something that's from a PowerPoint file, paste it into a Teams chat, and people can type in things into that edit, and that can go back directly back into PowerPoint. I don't quite understand exactly how this is going to work, but this is the future. This is everything being fluid and working in cohort together, which is where Teams begins. All right, so that's my final thought. Yes, Paul, back to you with some questions.
So there was one little question on Sway, just saying, can the recipient of the document print it out? Whether you
yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I thought you said that. That's fine. There were several questions on the Bookings app. Really, people asking, can they use it independently of Teams and other Microsoft products?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And the recipient of a Bookings query, no, they don't have to have any particular software, so it just works independently.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I use this for external people all the time. They just enter their email and then they get an email notification. It can be a Gmail. It can be absolutely any email that they want. Yeah.
There's one that's just come up extending on Sway. I mean, is it free as part of Office 365?
Yes. In fact, it's free even if you don't have Office 365, which is what's really good about it. So it is in the lowest tier, and it's also if you have a free Skype account or a free Hotmail account or an Outlook.com email address. Otherwise, you can create one. It's free. It's just as easy as creating a Gmail address. But if you have those, then you can get a Sway as well. It's completely.
There's a practical question about using Teams for sort of managing different workflows, particularly looking at an audit. If Ken has asked if you're and had an audit team, would you set them up? I think probably as a specific channel so that you could keep Excel documents there, PDFs, and other communications with the client. Could you use it as a sort of hub for information for a specific audit?
Yeah, you could. You could. In fact, there's a seamless. Teams is kind of a front end for SharePoint. Not going into too many specifics. So SharePoint is Microsoft's file storage service. You can sync it to your computer, and then it can just be accessed via your computer. So Teams is just where they come out of. But if you can give people the option to access files via Teams, but they could also access the same files. This is my SharePoint on my computer. And then these files could be accessed via both. Yeah, if that answers the question.
And there's one, David, on the Q&As about allowing you to comment, but I'm not sure if that's a misunderstanding.
Q&A. So the only place where Q&A comes in is to do with the live event. So similarly,
sorry, I haven't explained. The question is in the Q&A box rather than in the chat box. So it's asking. The question says, "Team allows you to reply to comments. Chat doesn't seem to. Is this correct?" Which is what I'm not sure. It's an understanding thing.
So Teams allows you to reply to comments. Chat doesn't. I'm not sure that there are a couple of feature gap differences. For example, the reply thing that you might be used to within WhatsApp of swiping to reply, that seems to only work on the mobile application for now and not on the computer. Yeah, maybe that's similar to what the issue is. I don't think it's in chat versus in Teams, but yeah, it might be something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we had a good flow of wows and a series of questions there. So, I mean, it's probably the hardest one to follow because it's a piece of software that we're less familiar with compared to Excel. So I think as much as anything, a lot of us just need some time to go away and play to understand some of these things a little bit more. So thank you, David. It's a great introduction, and I'm sure there will be some follow-up questions that come out of this.
Yeah. Next week, and I've just put in my YouTube link for anyone who wants to have a look at those videos as well. Cool.
Next week, we're looking at data visualization, which is something that I know does get you particularly excited. It's an area you really love. So for anyone who's trying to engage with their clients and get information across to clients in a more useful way that engages the clients, I think next week will be really valuable. Is there anything else you want to add on to that, David? It's looking at Power BI.
Yeah, so we're looking at Power BI and Excel. So if you have never used if you've never used Power BI before and you want an overview of what it is, then you'll learn what it is. If you've never used Power BI before and don't ever want to use it, then I will teach you some stuff in Excel. And if you are already a Power BI user, then I bet I'll teach you some stuff you don't already know.
Thank you. So that's great. And looking ahead to the future, we have been talking to David about where do we go after this initial session of webinars, and we've been discussing having a monthly catch-up whereby it wouldn't be specific to any one of the Microsoft products, but it would highlight either features that we should know about news or new features as they come in across the range of products that David's been talking about. And your feedback on that would be really useful. So if you have thoughts about what you'd like to hear in the future, or whether to have a monthly catch-up sounds like a good way forward, your feedback would be appreciated because that's what we've got in mind. So without any further ado, I hope you found today useful, and I look forward to catching up with you same time, same place next week for data visualization. So thank you all and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, David. I think it's in your hands now.
Yes. I'll just click end.
Do you need to stop the recording?